Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Just Another Esports podcast. Once again, you're joined by me, your host, Nicholas Shady Bacon, and my co host, Mr. Kevin Hubers. It's been 2 weeks since we last spoke to you guys, as it should be. Got that nice schedule up and going. Going to try and stick to that throughout this season. Hopefully, might have maybe some extra episodes here and there since this season's looking to be pretty jam packed with events. But over the 2 weekends that we did not talk to you, we saw 2 more Challenger Cups. So we'll be talking about those very briefly. We'll also be discussing some of the rumors kind of going into this season about maybe some set classes potentially for the competitive, for COD competitive, I guess. And then also we'll be going into our predictions for the season kickoff event and also discussing kind of the formulation for how stage 1 is at least going to be structured division-wise going into kind of the start of the season there. And so I guess first thing on the list was Challengers Cup. We saw the third and the fourth Challenger Cup and some interesting points. Westar, they clean swept all 4 Challenger Cups, getting first in every single one of them. Renegades failed to do so for the first time in a very long time. I believe 276 days was the statistic. Since Renegades had lost a Challengers Cup, they fell to, I believe, Void. And so they got 3rd/4th in the 3rd Challengers Cup, and then Void lost to Chiefs in the grand finals of that one. But then 4th Challengers Cup Renegades, they came back and they claimed that one. Meanwhile, in Europe, kind of teams are taking part in taking first and second all over the place. There hasn't really been too much consistency there. The only team that's even made it into the top 2 on multiple occasions, I believe, has been House Tarth, who has taken 2 first places in the 1st and the 4th Challengers Cup. So a bunch of chaos, I guess, over there in Europe. Meanwhile, in NA, we kind of just have one team that's dominating everyone, and in the Australian region, Australian New Zealand region, you have kind of 3 teams moving about. Void, I believe, has 3 second places in there, with Chiefs with 1 second place, 1 first place, and then Renegades with 3 first places. So kind of just moving around the top 3 teams over there in the Australia region. Meanwhile, here in NA, we just got Westar dominating everyone.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's just playing for second in this league. It's just Wester, and they're absolutely and utterly disgusting. Now, I do want to say, Nick, though, big thing that's trending on Twitter as far as Wester goes is a lot of people have said that um, they are calling for the entire Wester roster to just replace a CDL team. What are your thoughts on that?
I would agree with that. To be honest, they've been scrimming Optic quite frequently, I do say, and I mean, you saw from, I guess, Joey Nubsy's tweet calling out Riven for canceling their scrim to try and book one against Westar, simply because some teams in the Pro League might see it as better practice, in all honesty, to be scrimming this Westar roster than to be scrimming some of the pro teams at the bottom of the pack. And honestly, yeah, I would love to see them, like this group of 4, this core 4, come in and maybe replace an entire squad. I mean, you're probably not going to see that, unfortunately, but hopefully, like, what I'm thinking is maybe this team of 4, they're going to stick together throughout this whole season, and then when, like, that's hard to do, and I don't think we've really ever seen that in the amateur scene of a core 4 sticking together throughout the entirety of it. But hopefully that might happen if they keep on winning throughout the whole thing. And then once we finally do get expansion teams, someone will pick them up, whether it be Rise or whatever kind of organization comes into the mix here. But that is kind of what I'm hoping that we see, at least from the Westar side.
Yeah, I mean, see, I can understand where you're coming from. It would make sense to just like transpose the team and just give them some jerseys and a decent living wage and just kick out 4 pros. But we all know that there are teams that have working pieces, and then there's parts that will be defunct throughout the season. So I imagine realistically that a couple of them will get call ups throughout the season as the time goes on.
The
But
thing is, though, is will they decline those call ups? Because another thing that people were talking about was like these Western guys, they've had to have gotten offers at some point or another from some of these squads, but they might be turning them down simply because they're like, yeah, we'll just stick together and we'll go up into the pro league next year or something.
Yeah, I mean they could be waiting out for expansion, which is also a legitimate you know, possibility. I would imagine that it's either that or maybe like one or two get a call up and it's kind of like on loan, so to speak. Especially with the state of challengers right now, where the no anti cheat has kind of turned it into like this almost like toxic battleground of people accusing people of cheating left and right, and people going back through theater clips and
yeah,
like,
there's definitely been especially in this past Challengers Cup 4 for the NA, I believe in the top 8 there was one team where I was looking and I'm like, I have never heard of these players. Yeah, it was Bean Squad that got 5th through 6th. It was like 47, Littlefoot, Estriel, and Tay. I have never heard of any of those players. Every other player inside of the top 8, I've at least recognized their name. I have not seen those guys anywhere before. So that one,
yeah, probably just
like, I'll give them the benefit of doubt. But yeah, if you see like a squad that I haven't seen them like place anywhere near top 8 in the prior events, all of a sudden they're top 6. That's when you're like, what's going on here?
Well, I mean, it's just hard for any of these teams that are trying to legitimately grind up and they don't have the pro points to get higher placed, and all of a sudden they have to face wall hackers that don't care that they get banned from a tournament. They'll just pick up new gamer tags and start over.
I think the worst thing here is that you have to have that lingering doubt in the back of your mind that maybe they're cheating, and that's the worst thing, because you like want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but there's always that thought in the back of your mind, like, could they be cheating? And I guess one other thing, we finally saw Built by Gamers. They finally got out of, I believe, top 16. They finally got a 3rd place, and New York Subliners Academy got 2nd in this past Challengers Cup with their lineup of DiamondCon, Prolute, Saints, and Spart. So some pretty, I guess, Saints notable name on that roster there, as well as Spart. And then I believe they already picked up DiamondCon and Prolute. The Subliners did as substitutes for this season or something along those lines I remember seeing. So
now that you mention it, I totally forgot, and this is something that I think needs to be accentuated. Did you actually watch the Subliners Academy versus Firefly?
Firefly.
Was it Firefly, GG? No. Who was it that they played really, really close? It was like 249, 250, and then it went down to like...
It was Triumph.
Triumph, Triumph, not Firefly. Yeah.
Both S&Ds went round 11, and the...
first hard point went 249, 250.
I believe it was I thought it was the second hard point. One of the hard points went 249.
It was the Garrison one.
Yeah, and then Kismet, or not Kismet, he wasn't in that. Kismet's on Built by Gamers. General on Triumph went off in the control. I think he went like 31 and 15 or something ridiculous.
Yeah, so, beast mode.
Yeah, it's good to see him doing well, even though they were only able to get 4th. A little unfortunate there, but yeah, this Westar team is just kind of owning the NA region. And one other thing, I guess, for the European region, which was nice to see, someone pointed this out, the team that won the 3rd Challengers Cup for the European region, this Obtained squad, it pretty much is a squad that got formed as a result of the scouting grounds. You had a couple people that played together during the scouting grounds. I believe Harry and Hixie. I think they might have also played at one point. One of them might have played along the side of either Callum. I can't remember if any of them played with BB Connor during the scouting ground series, but I believe those 3 played together at some point, and they formed this team as a result of that. So you see some good coming from them. I think it was definitely very apparent that the European scene was taking it a lot more seriously than the NA scene was. And so it's nice to see some success come to a Challengers squad out of that.
Yeah, I mean, it has been interesting to watch Challengers this year, and I think this has been the most fun I've had watching Challengers in recent history, just because it's really the only like competitive COD on right now.
Yeah. It'd be even better if we could get a dedicated broadcast, and not just
I Hold Shift.
I Hold Shift's community broadcast, and Infinity, I believe.
Infinity,
as well,
Visions,
doing the European one.
Proper Cast. Yeah, I mean, they like Shift literally gets like 3 hours of sleep the entire weekend, and I couldn't be, more proud of the guy. he's a beacon of hope in the COD community, and I salute I Hold Shift.
Yeah, so that's kind of all the info going around with the Challengers Cups. We do have the 5th through 8th cups announced. There's a week break in between the 5th and 6th one, but the 5th one is going to be happening the weekend after the season kickoff event. Then there's going to be a week break. Then you have 3 in back-to-back weekends starting February 14th. That's going to be the 6th one. February 21st is 7th, and then February 28th is going to be the 8th Cup. And still no clue on when the Challengers Premier or Elite Series or whatever the heck it's being called is going to start. Potentially, it's going to be in between the 5th and 6th Cup is what some people are thinking, since there is that week off. And it's very interesting that they're still going to be having these Challenger Cups even during when they'll have the broadcast for kind of the stage 1 stuff. I find that very interesting that they're going along with that, even though like you don't really have to worry about kind of split viewership. I think it would still be nice that you can kind of manage the schedule in a way where it's like, okay, this weekend it's the Challenger series, and then the next weekend or whatever it's
CDL.
It's CDL. That, or maybe mix up the days or something along those lines, since I mean the pros aren't traveling to any events and it's all online, so they could realistically do it on like a Thursday or a Friday or something like that if they wanted to,
Right.
since it would be incredibly easy to do so. Probably won't, simply because they're going to get more viewers, I guess, over a weekend, especially since they're kind of doing all their matches back to back to back instead of like 2 a night or something along those lines, where a regular human being would be able to be like, okay, I'm off work at 6 or 5 or whatever, make dinner and sit down, watch some Call of Duty.
Right.
So
I'm actually pretty excited for this season, because you're right. I think that Challengers and CDL are going to trade off weekends essentially, and that's always good for entertainment COD. And then you couple that with most of the college COD. They did announce that they have scheduled play dates, and those are going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So during the weekdays, college COD will be on. Everybody can tune into that. We're looking at a pretty crazy season with almost 180 teams in it, and Challengers one weekend, CDL the next weekend. There's going to be a ton of competitive COD coming up, and this is going to be the year for it.
Yeah. I heard I think I heard it was like the University of Ottawa makes up 80 of those teams or something like that. They're fielding just an absurd number of teams.
So I guess drama-wise, I guess we can start covering college COD. I don't know if that's a conflict of interest for me.
Yeah, I'd be down.
But so drama-wise in college COD, so the biggest controversy or unlevel playing field in college COD is the ability of schools to have scholarships. And of course, scholarships are going to bring in talent. Ottawa is one of those schools that has full ride scholarships for their Call of Duty team. So because of this, they were scouting and farming talent and all that, et cetera, and they eventually got to the players that they wanted, and then past that, the rest of these guys have kind of scattered all over the place, going to other schools that offer scholarships. Most are Canadian, but that will change here in a few years as the landscape becomes more organized and evolved. But right now, Ottawa, yes, I think I Hold Shift said that about 55 players are scattered throughout college COD from Ottawa's fallout of trying to find the players that they want. And I mean, Ottawa's a great team. I'm not going to take anything away from them, but it's because of this that they have a lot of ego now, and there's just a lot of controversy surrounding Ottawa.
Nothing better than crapping on some people's ego.
Oh yeah,
it's not much more satisfying a feeling than going up against a team that's got a big ego and putting them in their place. But that's interesting to hear. I'm surprised to hear that a university, I guess, it's not like I'm not prolific. Like I don't know much about Ottawa University, but Ottawa's a pretty big city. I imagine their university is pretty reputable. So it's pretty interesting hearing that they actually do offer a scholarship for Call of Duty.
There,
That's
there's going to be more teams and more colleges that are going to get hip with it, and as the progressions move on, we will start to see, teams and colleges recruit. There's already plenty of good amateur players in college COD, and the number just continues to grow every year. So as far as um, what Ottawa's doing and what some of these other schools are starting to do, I think that they're ahead of the game, and it will be the norm here soon.
okay. Well, that will definitely be something to keep your eye on. And if I guess you think you're up to snuff with your Call of Duty skills and you're looking to get a college degree, maybe do some little searching. You might be able to find some here in North America, maybe, and then it sounds like some in Canada that offer scholarships either partially or a full ride. So that definitely would be something to look into if you're looking to get a college degree and you got the skills to pay the bills. But I think we'll move along to our next topic, which is this rumor of set classes for the CDL and for competitive Call of Duty, which might be incorporated into kind of a rank system. And so the rumor is that there might be 10 preset classes with a variety of guns, equipment, and attachments. And from these classes, you're not allowed to edit them. You have to select one of these classes to kind of play with. And it'll be interesting to see if only one person per team is allowed to select a specific class. I think that would make the most sense since it would allow you to limit um, people's ability to kind of run multiple pieces of equipment, like to kind of, it would allow it to be a lot easier for these teams to force people to follow the rule set and the GAs that they set up.
Right,
Um,
especially with trophies.
Especially with trophies, with smokes, with snipers.
Mm-hmm.
You can disable classes based on game modes. You can not even have those classes available for like specific game modes, and so to allow uh, it would allow, I guess, a lot more uniformity with teams. I think peace of mind with teams, kind of moving throughout the competitive season, and so I don't mind it necessarily. I do not like. I would prefer just the pick 10 system, um, because
Of
like
course, you
there's
would,
a lot of
Boomer.
trade-offs with the pick 10 system. It worked very well because not everyone was running a super weapon. Not everyone was just unkillable from lethals and tacticals and everything. They had to make decisions, and there was always trade-offs because you either allotted a point to get what you wanted, or you had to make the decision to not take that to take something else in its place. And that's why the pick 10 system worked so well. And it allowed for a lot of creativity and unique strategies in my eyes. And so but like the issue, I guess, with the pick 10 system is that because you can be creative, because for some reason COD pros hate the ability to be creative and use things that they don't deem balanced and whatnot, it opens a big bag of worms of all these GAs that get thrown around every season, just increasing as the years go on. And having set classes, in my eyes, kind of eliminates all that confusion. One, for players that maybe just want to play ranked and have never played it before, and two, for players that are watching professional Call of Duty for the first time. They don't have to learn all the GAs. They just know, okay, these are the set classes they have to play with, and so that's what they're forced to use.
Yeah, I mean, this is evil in my eyes, but if it gets rid of GAs, it's a necessary evil. GAs are the worst part about competitive COD. Um, I hate having to scroll through Twitter of a morning before I go on to do GBs or CMG or anything like that, or play eights or scrim and trying to figure out what the new GAs are for the day. Sometimes the GAs will change 3 or 4 times a day, and it's just, I mean, the whole community's tired of it at this point. If this fixes it, then fine. I don't like it because I don't believe that you can effectively counter meta whenever there's preset classes, but it is what it is. Like I said, it's a necessary evil if it gets rid of GAs, which I believe it will, because there's no reason to GA stuff if you can't change your class.
Yeah, and I think the pros and the GA rule set's been the pros play a dumbed down version of Call of Duty, and GAs just compound that effect until it's not even Call of Duty anymore, pretty much, at least in my eyes. And they're kind of forcing it with all the GAs, especially this season, into a very linear, straight up, like, you know exactly what's going to be happening. There's no, there really is no like counterplay in a sense this season, and if there is, it's extremely limited simply because of all the stuff that is either banned or GA'd.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this will fix the problem. Will it create other problems? Who knows? Will it stagnate play? Who knows? If they change the created classes every season, it might be a little bit better. Retool them, rebalance in order to make sure that things are staying on the up and up, then I would be pretty happy with it. That being said, I mean, my biggest concern still is people use things on specific guns to develop counter meta, and if you're not doing that, or if you're not allowing that, then is there really a counter meta at that point? Is everybody just going to run around with 2 AK-74Us and a Krig and an XM4, and that's just what Comp COD's going to be for the entire season? So, I mean, there's a lot of questions raised with this. I think that the devs have the ability to get this right. So I'm optimistic, but also skeptical, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of the perfect way for most of us to kind of describe the feeling that we have towards this idea of preset classes for competitive. But let us know. We don't get many comments on this video, but let us know what your opinion on this potential concept of having preset classes for competitive Call of Duty down in the comment section down below. I didn't want to double down on the downs, but
Double
I did.
down on the down. Give it down,
So
down.
that's all we had to really kind of say for that topic.
Is it prediction time?
It's almost prediction time.
Almost
prediction time for the season kickoff. I do want to just briefly touch on how the kind of stage 1 will be not taking place, but how it will be structured, at least in the divisions. So this is kind of interesting, and I do agree with this choice here. So for the 2 round robin groups, Atlanta and Dallas will draft each other's group during the Kickoff Classic, which is the season kickoff event that we'll be giving our predictions for. And so I think that is a very good choice. That was the first and the second place team from last year. Yep. So that's kind of the reward from doing the best out of all the other teams in the league the prior season. And I think this will create a very balanced stage 1. This will create very balanced divisions for stage 1, since like the staff for the CDL have no clue how good any of these teams are. And so they wouldn't be able to make these groups, but the teams themselves would, because they've been playing each other for scrims leading up to the start of the season. And so I think this is kind of the best way of creating the divisions for stage 1, is to just let the top 2 teams from the prior season pick each other's groups. You get incredibly balanced groups because they're obviously going to give they're trying to stack the odds in their favor, but because it's going back and forth, either I don't think it's going to be a snake draft. I think they're just going to go back and forth between picking what team they want to put in each other's group. They're going to end up having balanced groups because they're going to assign the team they think is third best to their opponent's group, the team they think is fourth best to their group, and whatnot, down all the way to the team they think is the worst.
Right.
And so then probably after stage one and after and then from here on, they can kind of base the next stage seeding off of kind of the first stage seeding, or maybe they'll do this drafting again for stage two. Who knows? But I think this is a very good idea to kind of just make sure that stage one groups are balanced. Since, as we know, kind of the way they had it set up last season, they kind of just did it based off of, hey, these are going to be exciting matchups. And so you had, Dallas play Chicago, I think, like 3 times in the first 2 weeks of competition or something along those lines, because they played at Minnesota, and Dallas also played FaZe. Like, Dallas had such an incredibly hard schedule at the beginning of the year. And I'm pretty sure, I think it might have been Ace or someone like posted how many times certain teams were facing each other. And it was like, oh, this team doesn't play this team at all, at least based on like their first round matchups or whatever, but they play this team like 4 different times. And so I think this is a much better way of doing it this time around.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of complicated, honestly. I'm just glad we're just doing it for the kickoff weekend.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready for the kickoff weekend, honestly. I'm so ready for it.
Okay, well, I guess we'll just move right into the kickoff weekend with our predictions. So this event, it's happening this weekend, 23rd and the 24th. I don't think we have a start time yet. Maybe there's a start time over here on the COD Wikipedia page. I don't see. Oh, there's probably one on the Call of Duty League website. But while I bring that up to announce that, the matchups that we do have on Saturday, we have the Dallas Empire versus the New York Subliners. So that's going to be a Crimp 6 versus Clayster matchup, which will be very interesting since Clayster was on that Empire squad that won the prior CDL championship. Then you have LAG versus Seattle. Those were pretty much the worst 2 teams last season. So we got a rematch from the bottom of the barrel from last season. So we'll see who's not the worst team. I think most of us think probably Paris is the worst team, even though I'm looking at your predictions and you actually have them winning their matchup. But we'll get to that in a bit. Saturday, we have Atlanta versus Florida. I would have much rather seen Atlanta versus Seattle, since that would have been our cities versus Pristini. But unfortunately, Florida won the fan vote there. So those 2 teams will be facing off Saturday. Our Sunday matchups, it is London versus Paris. So that one's interesting because Paris has Scraps and London got rid of Scraps. Toronto versus Minnesota, not really much of a storyline there outside of the Battle of the North. And then for closing out Sunday, or maybe to start it off, I don't know, either or, we have Chicago versus the LA Thieves. So old Optic Gaming versus new Optic Gaming, but what was actually old Optic Gaming is new
Nick.
Optic Gaming.
I'm pretty sure you can't say that.
Yeah.
That's Hector's Optic.
Hector's Optic versus what
Immortals.
Was the impersonation Optic.
Immortals GG.
They now took off their mask and they donned it was funny. So they stole Optic and now they're the thieves. Let's go with that. Really bad jokes.
Yeah, that was pretty tragic. I think we're ready to move on to predictions, though.
Yeah, we'll move on to predictions. We'll start off with the Dallas versus Subliners matchup. What is your prediction?
I think Dallas takes this in a 3-1 fashion. I've been pretty harsh on Dallas too in Twitter, but the Subliners are still trying to identify who their top 4 are. I believe Hydra's coming back. There's just a lot going on, so I just don't think that they're quite ready yet, and there's a lot of question marks around the roster right now, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, this is basically like a preseason event. So, with all that being said, I think that Dallas they've had their 4 for over, they had it all last season, and they have them for this season now. They've been practicing, they've been scrimming, they know what they're about. I think that they take it in a 3-1.
Yeah, I agree. I think Dallas is actually going to take it 3-0.
Okay.
Dallas core 4, or I guess core 3. I'm not going to count Crimsix as a core, even though he kind of was a core alongside Clayster, but he's missing his, I guess, more personable half.
His geriatric duo.
Yeah, so they still have kind of their core roster all there. Well, New York, pretty much, it's the only two people that played together all of last year was Mac and Zuma. And while Clayster and Zuma have history together, I believe winning some titles throughout their stint with FaZe, this is a new game, and they're going to have to kind of rebuild that synergy and re-understand how maybe they like to play the game now, since it's been quite some time since they played on the same roster, and they're kind of playing half with a sim, half with Hydra, and so we don't even know like who they're actually going to start for this matchup against the Dallas Empire. And so I think right now New York, they just have a lot that they need to figure out first before they can actually be a contender and be able to contend with this Dallas lineup.
Yeah, there's just too many question marks.
Yeah, and both of these the matches for Saturday and Sunday, they will start at 3 p.m. EST. So that will be noon for all of you Pacific Standard Time people. In any other time zones, I am sorry, but I don't feel like doing those conversions for you. You can do them yourself. You should know what they are. But they'll start at 3 p.m. EST, Saturday and Sunday. All right, so we're both in agreement. Dallas is going to take this over the New York Subliners. I'm feeling like it's going to be pretty convincing. I mean, I gave it a 3-0, but even like with the matches, you can still have like a close 3-0, but I think it's going to be a pretty convincing 3-0 for Dallas. I think they're going to look pretty comfortable taking this over the Subliners. Moving on to our second Saturday matchup, it is the LA Guerrillas versus Seattle Surge. And you have LAG taking this 3-2 over Seattle. Care to explain?
Yeah, so I mean, both these teams are kind of, I don't know. There's a lot of questions. There's even more question marks surrounding them than the New York Subliners. The Subliners look like a better team than both of them, and they don't even really have a fourth currently. I mean, they do. It's Hydra and all the visas. Anyway, so LAG and Seattle look worse than the Subliners. So this is going to kind of be like a I don't know, a battle of the least fit. I just LAG looks more like a team than Seattle. Seattle looks like a bunch of pros that are maybe past their prime, perhaps, and they still have to deal with Octane. And Octane, like this offseason has only further accentuated that I believe that Octane is the problem with Seattle. And I'll explain. So whenever
I like this point already, because I feel like this is something we said at the throughout some point last year. So I'm excited to hear this.
I think that he has developed this crazy ego about him, and an ego on any team is not good. It's not a good look. There's a difference between like noise, like Crim6 makes on Twitter, and an actual honest to God ego. And I really do believe that Octane ego gets the better of him, and that's what makes Seattle not as much of a team as these other teams are. He's a great player in his own right. He's a fantastic shooter, but he plays his own game and expects the other three players to play around him. Whereas LAG, they know that they're a team. They know that they have to play together, and they have the roster to do it. So you take a team versus three guys in Octane, and I would imagine it's still going to be close, because I do think that star power means something, and I still believe that Octane's ability on the map does matter, and his teammates are fluid enough to follow suit. But I really do believe that LAG pulls this out 3-2 in a close search.
Yeah. The Octane playstyle does giveth and it does taketh away. I'm going to give this to the Surge in 3-2 fashion over the Gorillas. The only reason being is, as we saw kind of last year, at the start of the year especially, the dominant playstyle was the Octane playstyle. You had that one player going off and just completely manhandling other teams. Players going double positive at the end of events, with Wuskin, Octane being the two most prominent of that kind of playstyle. And it's not going to be until I feel a little bit later that LAG is actually going to be able to come together and put the Seattle Surge team in their place if they continue that kind of play style. I feel like it might just be a little bit too early into the title, even though it's already like 3 months into the title by the time we're actually going to get this matchup. I feel like it might just be a little bit too early to kind of say, okay, yeah, LAG is going to be able to take down the Seattle Surge roster with the 4 players that they do have. Because, I mean, you look at Seattle Surge, they got Gunless, Octane, Pristini, who is not a bad player in any right, and then Looney, who is a very intelligent player and a very consistent player in my eyes. You know what you're going to get out of him. You're going to get a solid 0.9 to 1 point. Like, you're hoping for a 1.0, but it's usually going to be around the 0.9 range.
Right.
And so this is going to be a matchup. I'm very all these matchups are going to be very exciting to see. Even this LAG Seattle Surge one, these are definitely not 2 top teams as of right now, based on kind of everyone's expectations of them. Even based on kind of this quote unquote star power you do see on the Seattle Surge, everyone's still highly skeptical about them because they haven't been doing well in scrims by any means.
True.
And so I'm just very excited to see how the Seattle Surge team performs, simply because of Pristini's role that he's been given within this lineup. And I'm going to be very interested to see kind of how they're able to perform against a team that has to rely on teamwork,
right.
in this LAG lineup. But I'm going to give it to Seattle Surge 3-2 in the end. So already we're I guess not agreeing on something, which is good, which is very good. But I know for this next matchup, we're both going to agree. The Atlanta FaZe versus the Florida Mutineers. You're giving it a 3-0. I'm going to go 3-1. And I guess something interesting with this Florida Mutineers lineup is Havoc's out most likely, and Neptune is in.
Yes, I was actually going to talk about that. Honestly, huge change and well deserved. Neptune, it has probably one of the fastest come ups in professional COD history, and he deserves it. And with how Avic played last year, he is the only logical one that would make sense. I mean, everybody else on that Florida roster has been competitive and has played really well. So it's unfortunate, but there's only 48 roster spots. I'm sure.
Really? There, in my eyes, sorry to cut you off, but there's 2 people. There's either 2 choices with this kind of Florida Mutineers lineup, because you're not taking out Awakening and you're not taking out Skies. So you're either taking out Havoc or Slacked. Slack's the new guy on this roster. And so you could say it's somewhat surprising that Havoc's the one that's leaving, because he's the one that's been playing with them for the other 2 for a full year. But on the other hand, Havoc or Neptune's role within a roster is much more similar to Havoc's. And so it makes more sense to take out Havoc instead of Slacked. And so you kind of have this interesting dynamic there. And I almost want to say, oh man, dude, Slack's kind of like a parasite, man. He got into this Florida Mutineers lineup and he's already kicking players off the team. Havoc's already gone. It hasn't even been a month and he's already gone. Holy cow.
Yeah, I don't know. I do believe that Slacked is probably the better player of the 2. As far as fulfilling roles go, because you don't really need a Slayer. You've got Awakening and you've got Skies, and both of those guys are just, I mean, I don't even have to tell you.
I never classified Havoc as a Slayer. I classified him as that
he's
annoying guy that
he's
threw
utility.
A smoke mid and ran through it and killed people. And
he's your entry, he's your bait, he's all of this utility stuff. He'll sit on hill, he'll run bomb, all that other stuff. No, Awakening and Skies are your Slayers on that team. They're the ones that you build your foundation on. They're both fantastic players. Awakening has nothing to prove to anybody in this league at this point. Neither does
Yeah.
Skies. And I think between Slacked and Havoc to drop for Neptune, you kind of have to give it to you probably have to take away Havoc. So, um, that being said, I mean, we're talking about this roster change anyway. Like it's gonna matter against Atlanta FaZe,
No, I
who
don't think it
made.
would matter against Atlanta, but I do find it very interesting that Havoc's the one out. I mean, you can make an argument both ways. I think for either player. I mean, it's just very, very interesting that we kind of see this train. I mean, they were struggling in, I guess, scrims before this change, and they've looked pretty decent after it. But yeah, I don't know. I would definitely like to see an iteration of this roster with Havoc and Neptune in. Those kind of players, it just makes more sense. I mean, I guess Slack has played with Skies in the past on that Luminosity lineup, but yeah, very interesting to see already a pro player subbed out for an AM before even any matches have been played, official matches at least.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I mean, it doesn't matter. Like I said, for this specific matchup, it's Atlanta FaZe who made the right roster change this year and is going to be one of the most dominant rosters coming out of this scene. I'm saying easy 3-0.
okay. I'm gonna give at least one to Florida. They probably won't get it, but yeah, Atlanta is definitely gonna take this one relatively convincingly in my eyes. Moving on to our first Saturday matchup, though, we got the Battle of Europe in the London Royal Ravens versus the Paris Legion, and you're going Paris 3-2 over London. Please do explain.
So
Because I know Paris didn't look bad in the one scrim they had against Optic, but
let me take you back to the beginning of 2020, before COVID-19. In the very first event that we played on LAN, and I must remind you of the dark horse and absolute unknown factor that the Paris Legion was. This team has 4 legitimate pros on it. We have no idea how they're going to play with each other. I mean, we have a general understanding, but they don't scrim with anybody here. They've started scrimming, I guess, but I don't even know if they're scrimming against any of the pro teams right now. So
they scrimmed against Optic, and that was it.
yeah, and
Scraps finally got back from Mexico.
so yeah, so so if you remember, when Paris was an unknown, they were a threat. And I imagine that if any team can lose to Paris in game 5, it's got to be London. If you also remember from last season and London's ability to absolutely and utterly choke in the game 5 or in the map 5.
I do, unfortunately.
So with those two things in consideration, I am giving it to Paris 3-2. It's not going to be a pretty game. It's probably going to be one of the worst games we watch this kickoff weekend. But I mean that's my logic and reasoning behind giving it to Paris 3-2.
I guess a point to bring up too is London going to have Zero? Is he still stuck in the UK? Does anyone know?
Yeah, I mean that's another thing. I mean, as of recording, the tournament's still a ways out, so I'm unsure. I'm unsure of a lot of factors right now. And
again, I think London's one of the few teams I haven't seen scrim anyone else. I haven't seen New York play them at all. I don't think I've seen Optic play them at all. I think I've seen both New York and Optic play every other team on this list outside of maybe Toronto. I don't think I've seen them play Toronto at all either, but yeah. It's going to be interesting to see if Zero's here because I like Hydra. He's still stuck in France. I know that for a fact. Heck, he played in the last Challengers Cup.
Did indeed.
Oh, but okay. Yeah, so I'm going to give it to London in the N3-2. So we're a bit reversed there in our predictions. But I think Paris is the worst team in the CDL, and I'm going to stick by that. And so I'm going to give it to London in the end here. But Moving on to our second Sunday matchup. It's another rivalry matchup, I guess you could say. We have the Battle of the North, Toronto versus Minnesota. I am going to give this to Minnesota, I think, in 3-2 fashion.
3-2.
Yeah, 3-2.
I
Now,
So I will say I don't believe that if this goes to a game 5 that this is Minnesota's game to win. That being said, I don't believe it'll go to a game 5. Toronto is definitely the better search team on paper, and they've definitely proven themselves last year. But I mean, if you want to give it to them 3-2,
you don't think they'll be able to take a hard point or a control?
Toronto? I think that they take. I think they did. That's tough. I don't believe so. I think Minnesota's got that X factor. They got the juice
Minnesota
this year.
just clutches out all 3 respawns.
Yeah, and I think they lose the
close
search.
it out.
I mean that's where I have them. I think I mean I have Minnesota winning 3-1 over Toronto. I don't see them in the game 5 pulling it out. I might be wrong. I mean this is a completely new Minnesota rocker, like totally new.
Yeah. This is it's literally none of the players that were on the Minnesota Rocker last season are on this current roster, and the only players that played together, well, I guess no, they took 2 pieces from FaZe and 2 pieces from New York, and they're trying to fit those together. Meanwhile, Toronto, it's the same 4 from last season. Their 5th man, Classic, is gone. He's on Paris, but they kept 4 of their 5 for Toronto. So yeah, it's
I mean like Toronto is the same
I have
team.
a little more faith in this Toronto. Like Toronto, they always played teams close last season, and I think they're going to continue to do that again this season. And honestly, this Minnesota Rocker, I don't know, but something about it just tells me they're not going to be as dominant as like one might think, even though they have kind of the pieces there to be really good.
Yeah, they've got a top 5 team on paper. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, you have Major Maniac, Priesta, Attach, and Accuracy.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
so
insane squad, and this is going to be a fantastic year for them. I am in my opinion, which is why I'm willing to give them this win here. But I mean, it really could go either way because the Ultra they have essentially the same roster.
Yeah,
so
something about me just feels that there's just going to be this weird pacing issue with Minnesota, whereas Toronto, I feel like they're all going to be on the same
they're
going
to be more cohesive. I see that.
They're going to be more cohesive. I am giving it to Minnesota in the end, but I think they're going to struggle a bit more than one might suspect with this Toronto lineup. So that's where I'm coming with my 3-2 for Minnesota. But moving on to our last match to close out Sunday, we have the matchup I think probably everyone is maybe the most hyped to see.
I know
we
I
have
am.
Optic Chicago Optic, OC, the OG, versus the LA Thieves.
Yeah,
so I'm going to let you go into your prediction first.
So
on this one,
yeah, this is going to be a crazy matchup because if you guys remember from the Black Ops 4 season, 100 Thieves, or essentially LA Thieves back then, they were kryptonite to Optic. I don't know what it was, but anytime that they played Optic, it seemed like Nadeshot just had the read. He was, or I don't know what it was. I just don't. But it just seemed like, I don't know. He offered them like more merch or something like that, or like bonuses, shoes or something, so that way they would beat Optic. So I mean, they have consistently had the X factor. That being said, this Optic team is absolutely and utterly disgusting. I mean, this is going to be a great year for Optic. Dashy's in form. Formal's looking good. Envoy is still playing immaculately, and Scump is still going strong. King Scump. So I'm going to give it to Chicago 3-2. But know that regardless of what happens in this game, it's going to be the most fun out of all of these to watch. The narrative's there, the stories are there. I mean, everything about it is crazy.
Yeah. So I'm going to go against you. I'm going to say the LA Thieves take this 3-2 over Optic. And it's interesting because I'm not sure if the Thieves would actually be able to win S&D against Optic. I think this Optic Gaming lineup is probably a better overall S&D team than the LA Thieves. So I almost want to give it to the LA Thieves 3-1, but I can't realistically see them taking 3 respawns, even though Control's kind of like a mix of a respawn and not a respawn with the live counts and the respawn delay and whatnot. And Optic usually struggles in those types of game modes. I mean, you look back at CTF, they struggled immensely in that throughout pretty much their entire existence. They were good at uplink, but that had a very short respawn delay. And so that was more so a respawn game mode than kind of any of the third game modes that we have had. But one thing kind of Optic struggles with, and we saw this in probably BO4 more so than MW, because I don't think it really was something that occurred as much in MW. And even though like BO4 was a 5v5 and people will say, oh, there aren't important kills on the map, there definitely were important kills on the map, because plenty of times I saw the Chicago lineup completely outslay a team, yet win by a very small margin. And that is something that's going to be even more so in kind of the 4v4
True.
landscape that we do see now. And so we saw, like, when we discussed the stats on the Optic Gaming roster last season, which was what the LA Thieves is now, the one thing that they were doing really good, even while they were losing everything, was their true engagement success, which was how often they were being traded out. And they were by far the best team in the league at being traded if they were to lose a gunfight. And so that's something that's going to be incredibly important in 4v4, where kind of solo band plays can kind of turn the tide of a game, is being able to ensure that someone is there to actually get the trade and not lose the trade. And so for that reason, I'm going to give it to this LA Thieves lineup in the end, 3-2 over Optic Chicago. It's definitely going to be an incredibly close and competitive game and can go either way.
Right.
I'm just taking kind of my shot in the dark and saying right now I don't think the Chicago Optic lineup is going to beat the LA Thieves.
And
I have them
honestly,
both as A tier.
you could be right. You could be 100% right. You could be on the money, and we'll find out soon. So I'm really excited to see college, or not college. I'm really excited to see the CDL back. You know, this kickoff
and
event.
hopefully all the teams take this seriously, even
Right.
though it doesn't mean anything for. It doesn't mean anything. Like, this doesn't count as any points towards stage 1 or towards playoffs or anything. It's just kind of, I guess, a dry run of what the season will look like, to kind of hopefully get any tech issues
Right.
out of the way. So hopefully all the teams try hard and take it seriously, even though it doesn't mean anything at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm just excited that it's back. So excited.
All right. Well, I guess unless you have anything else to say, that's going to be it for this episode. I hope you guys all have a fun, happy, and safe weekend, enjoying some fabulous Call of Duty. But that is it from us for this episode. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time with a recap of that event and hopefully some news for stage 1. But that will be it from us. See you guys next time.
Later.
All right, so you got the rundown?
Wait, you want me to do it?
No,
Oh.
no, just what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we'll figure it out.
Okay. All right, I'll start it
I
in
mean,
a sec then.
I already did all my predictions anyway, so I'm ahead.
Yeah, I see that. I see that.
Yeah, you're gonna shit on me. You know who's not gonna shit on me? LAG, because they're definitely beating Seattle.
Okay.